What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. And as you can tell from the title, we are talking about the VP9, that H&K. Now, I can tell you, I wanted to like this gun so much because it felt so good in the hand of the store. I mean, I typically hate finger grooves, but this thing, it just feels really awesome in the hand. The ergonomics of the grip on this thing are pretty much second to none in my opinion. But that didn't really follow through the first couple of range trips for me. Now let's talk about H&K as a company just for a little bit before we get into the video. Now H&K has been known over the years for making some pretty awesome stuff. But they've had a lot of trouble over the years from, I think they've like almost gone bankrupt a couple times. I think they're on some kind of like angel investment loan at this point because they haven't been producing as much, haven't been getting as many larger contracts. And they've been really just kind of surviving off that like 1980s SAS operation where that awesome photo from Operation Nimrod. Now for those of my guys out there that don't know what Operation Nimrod is, you need to check that out. That was one of the greatest SAS hits, just broadcast on live TV. Really, really cool. For those of my guys out there that have done breaching or demo or anything like that before, that dude that laid that charge, him and his buddy that were right there, they took that charge. That was a lot of cord on that thing, and they pretty much probably walked away with their bells rung pretty hard, but really cool. And that kind of exploded H&K with the MP5 because they were just pretty well newly outfitted with those as far as I understand, and then everybody had to have them. You know, everybody had to have that H&K after that embassy hit in the 80s, and some SWAT agencies and some other people are actually still carrying those because they're a pretty dang badass little setup. Now unfortunately for H&K, that tends to wane over time, and a lot of people are carrying different things now. They've just not done that great over the years, even though they've produced some pretty dang cool stuff like the VP9. And then the VP40 as well, because we all know people are into the 40 cal stuff still. So they jumped right into that striker market with the VP9 right here. Now their striker stuff has actually turned out to be pretty good. It's not bad at all. And we'll kind of get more into the feelings that I have about the H&K VP9 and why I have those feelings, because it's quite a different setup than a lot of people are used to. The biggest thing being it's a powder release for the magazine right there. So for those of the guys that don't know, you can see right there you have the paddles on the base of the trigger guard, and that is your magazine release. Now I've had setups with powder releases before. Just really wasn't that into them, but I was gonna make the exception for the VP9, and you know that once I saw it in that gray, I was pretty much gonna buy it at that point. Plus I got it on a pretty dang good sale. Now let's take a quick walk around this here. Like I said, holding this in the store, I wanted to absolutely love this gun. And I typically do not like finger grooves, you know that. And this has got some pretty good sized finger grooves in there, as you guys can see. But you are able to change the back strap and the side moldings on these. And that's pretty cool because you can really get this thing to fit your hand. And I think a lot of people kind of like that, but it just, I mean, there's just something about how it just rests in the hand. It just feels so good. Now, when it comes to how big they had to do the trigger guard there, that's because that's where the mag release is. And I find that that really does kind of get in the way for me. And they weren't able to really kind of, you know, refine this as much as some other companies have. And it's just a different feel once you get forward of the actual grip itself. Let's go ahead and talk about that trigger real quick. As we can see right here, you got your standard trigger shoe safety. And let's get a pre-travel right there. Not too much creep at all. Reset, and you can kind of see where this trigger shines. Now it's a pretty hard wall, pretty defined trigger on there, and that's kind of what I'm into. Pre-travel, not the longest, not the shortest. A little bit of post-travel there. The reset's a little longer than some others, but it's gotten a little better with rounds. So I have found that this trigger kind of opened itself up a little bit after probably that 300 to 400 round mark. It really kind of just started to smooth out, but this trigger and what's going on in here, it's a booger. Now, there are some options out there that are pretty cool for the trigger goes, but this thing really is not the most end user serviceable friendly setup out there. It goes back to, I guess, that old saying, German engineering. Well, they like really engineered this to the point where when you peel it apart and get down in there, you look like you're looking at a Volkswagen motor rather than a striker-fired pistol system. And I think you actually need, well, I know you actually need, or you can't get away without it, but technically you need an actual special tool to really break this thing all the way down. And that's a big downer right up front. But H&K, that name is synonymous pretty typically with quality and some pretty absolutely cool firearms over the years. Generally, you're gonna get a very high quality setup. It just may not be what you're really interested into. They've had some oddball stuff over the years, but generally gonna get something that's pretty high quality. But their customer service has lacked over the years to the point where I've heard multiple people say that if you don't have a large multi-million-dollar contract, they pretty much don't want to talk to you if you have a warranty issue. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments down below, but I've heard quite a few horror stories from H&K customer service over the years. Now, H&K is proud of their stuff. They definitely do not sell what they make cheap. So they're a little bit more expensive than some things, less expensive than others. I guess you kind of got to figure out, are you getting what you're paying for? Now, some people just love that H&K name, and I do too. When I was younger and I was in the military, you know, I remember my first friend got that H&K USP Tactical 45, and we all thought like, oh my God, this is the greatest gun ever. And now I pretty much hate that thing. I would never carry it because there's just so many other better options out there in my opinion. But it was a really cool gun at the time. Now, H&K tried to step it up a notch with the VP9 and try to enter that striker-fired kind of mid-level price range market. And it's had some pretty good success, but they definitely can get expensive. And then there's just less overall options. There is an aftermarket out there if you're into aftermarket stuff, but it's pretty thin for the VP9 and the VP40 and the VP short. So it's really up to you, but are you really getting a more refined setup? Is it gonna feel that much better than say like a Glock or something, a Smith & Wesson? Because that's what they're really trying to compete against. So we are definitely gonna get into this thing right now. Check this thing out, see what we got going on here. And I'm gonna show you some of the weird stuff going on in here, because like I said, this is a different kind of striker-fired setup here. And you know, everybody has to differentiate themselves a little bit when it comes to the striker-fired systems and the safeties and all that. But H&K literally, I think, just kind of they kind of wanted to see how interesting or how like, you know, difficult they really could make this thing for the end user to work on, because there's some odd stuff going on in there. Like I said, the fact that you technically need this special tool to get it all the way down apart is kind of a pain in the butt. I've even had people that I've seen wanted to do some work on this were like, hey, but you got to take it apart yourself. And I'm like, that was kind of my first sign to be like, okay, what am I getting into? But if you guys like anything you see here in the videos today, I will leave links down in the description for you guys. But you know, if it's 2A stuff, anything like this, YouTube does not allow those links anymore. And I keep getting questions for that. So you can check that first link in the description. That's going to take you off to a page where the video is hosted, or you can go to tacticalconsiderations.com and see everything that I've done. But we're going to go ahead and get into this H&K VP9 right now. The H&K VP9. That gray just makes me happy. You guys know I love gray, which is why I had to buy this in gray. I absolutely could not buy it in any other color. Let's check this thing out. Soup to nuts. We're going to go slide up. Guess we should start with the mags. So this is the compact-ish-esque something right in there, I guess. So we've got a 15+1 all metal magazine, as you guys can see right there. Good mags, haven't had any issues with them. H&K generally makes pretty good stuff. Talking about the pistol grip here, now normally I am just not a fan of finger grooves in any stretch of the imagination. What I can tell you is this thing just feels so damn good in the hand. I mean, it does. It just fits. I mean, I don't know what to say. It just fits. So what we do get here, these are molded in. Those are your finger grooves. You can see kind of it's a squiggly lined kind of pattern on the texture. And I found it to be good. Found it to be plenty out there, even when I'm sweating in the Arizona sun shooting. You get a couple of different options here with the VP9s. I'm sure a lot of you guys know there are reviews on these out there. Interchangeable back straps, this is the larger one. And then you get the side inserts right there. So you can actually make it thicker on the side profile than it is. So that's pretty dang cool. Typical pin style retention right there, your roll pin. There are mag wells that fit this. Now, let's talk about the mag well. That is one thing I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, they did leave a nice depression there in case you got to strip a magazine, you can pull it out. But it's so form fit in there. I mean, look at that. So you really got to be dead nuts on. I mean, there's like very little room to be off on a magazine exchange here. And I really wish this had more of a flare to it and less of, I guess, a bevel or depression there. Because when I'm doing magazine exchanges and we're under stress, guys, things don't always line up perfectly. I know they don't for me. And you see in my videos, I can run a gun great. I can run them fast sometimes, and other times I'm just all thumbs and I just seem to mess things up. So I really like to have seen more of that. What I do kind of like is they gave me that nice little lip there at the bottom, which just grabs my pinky perfectly. Almost like a magwell, almost like an aftermarket magwell. I just wish they would have flared it more here. So that's my gripe. Up in here, got a great area to really get that hand deep up in there. Control that recoil impulse. Moving from the back forward. Now let's finish the frame off. So the one thing that's odd, we got the paddle release. So for those of you guys that don't know, that's the magazine release on the trigger guard right there. It's different. Not the first company to do it, not the last company that's going to do it. I've had paddled mag release guns before. Not my favorite. I knew that going into it. You can do it however you want. I typically come off the trigger and use my pointer finger, the point you don't like finger, to manipulate that, or sometimes I'll use my thumb depending on what's going on. But for me, I find this is quicker than breaking grip a lot more and trying to use my thumb. But it is ambidextrous. That's good. There is a version that has a mag release here on the pistol grip. I've never seen one in person. I've seen pictures of it. The gun store says it is in existence, but they've never seen one. The trigger, it's striker fired as usual, so it's got a curve to it. Trigger shoe safety. You got looks like you got yourself a solid pin here, a roll pin there, a roll pin there. It does have that safety that catches the frame right there, so if your finger's not all the way on, you can't get it. So is what it is. We'll come back to that in a second. Got that standard pick rail, looking pretty good. Chamfer cut very nicely right there to help reinserting and exiting that holster to make sure you're clean and good to go. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 notches up here. Gives you plenty of room to move lights or lasers or whatever the heck you want to stick on there, a bayonet back and forth. Let's come back to that trigger. So listen to that thing. It's gritty. I mean, you can hear that. Let me get my mic closer. That is a gritty trigger. So lots of take up, and it's sloppy. So it's like, it feels like harsh wall. It's like, it stutters all the way through. Then you hit the hard wall. Brake isn't too bad. Pretty long reset. And then it like, watch that reset again. It's almost like it over travels on the reset. See? So kind of weird, but that's how this trigger system works. Let's check that creep in there. So creep, 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 brake. So a little bit of a creep in the brake. One more time, brake. And you can see kind of that over travel on the reset. Just how this thing is. Coming up top, we've got an ambidextrous slide stop slide release. I've actually found pretty dang easy to use. I've run it both sides. I've used it offhand like this. It works pretty dang good. Standard takedown lever, standard pins in there. You guys are pretty familiar with that stuff. Moving up onto this slide. Okay, striker indicator on the rear. You can see the chamber indicator right back there. So it goes away, means you've expended the casing in there, or it's dead, whatever you mean. I don't know what to say. These things right here. Plastic inserts for cocking serrations on the rear to, I guess, help if you've got little girl hands and you can't manipulate the slide. I could do without them. Quite honestly, I think they suck. They're plastic. I don't like them. The sights, not bad. They're glow-in-the-dark type stuff. They're not night sights, and they're kind of that loam green color almost. Good serrations. I really don't think that they needed these things. I mean, these serrations are solid. So they're deep, they're nice, they catch plenty of meat. It's good. They didn't need these things. It's like putting a sticker on a car thinking it gives it horsepower. Front serrations, in case you're into doing those cocks from the front. Nicely chamfered down on the nose of that slide for holstering, unholstering. Done a good job there. Not bad at all. Standard looking barrel. Do have slight target crown in there, it looks like. Get you the best light I can right here. You can see it right there. There's a slight target crown in there. Not bad at all. Elongated extractor right there, which is pretty typical in striker fired systems. You can see there's more pins going in on here than probably most other striker fired guns that are widely carried, like Glocks and MPs and stuff, and just different things going on with the the system in here, which we're going to take a look at right now because it's interesting to say the least. Okay, let's get up into the slide first. Barrel, we can see I'm probably close to 1,000 rounds. Barrel is actually wearing really damn well. More so on the bottom than on the top. I know it's hard to see because this thing's a little bit oily. Let me get a little rag here, get some of that oil off there. So you can see the bottom is it's wearing quite a bit more than the top is, which is interesting. Normally it's kind of even. So up there across the top, that hood, little bit of wear going on, nothing major. Kind of more on the outer edges right there, you can see. Whatever, it's wearing normal. You're going to expect that type of wear. Standard recoil guide rod spring assembly, nobody really cares. It does what it does. Here's where we get interesting. Is this a Volkswagen Bug engine or is this a gun? So, I mean, look at what we got going on here for the striker safety. This turning portion right here that gets captured on this part of the trigger as it comes back, and there's a lot going on in here. Breaks down fairly similar to most striker fired setups. You just have more pins to get things out here than certain other guns. But that's kind of just the way things are. This gets rotated over by that other side of the trigger bar that I'll show you in a second, and that allows the striker to go forward. Pretty interesting design of what they did here with this little rotating edge right there. I think they complicated. I really think they complicated this thing more than they needed to. And then we get down into the frame, and this bad boy is interesting. So kind of a standard looking locking block rail setup up there, I guess. But then you look at the trigger bar, you know, which comes across the shooter's right side right there and moves back. You got the portion in here that's going to disconnect right there, allows the striker to go forward. You can see, get you some best light, you can see that drop down right there. And then you get that portion over here that's going to disengage that striker safety right there on this portion right there as it comes back, and that whole trigger group drops down in there. But there's, I mean, just look at that. There's just a lot going on in here. Then you see down in there that weird coiled spring. That's the trigger bar spring, and it connects in there right there on that little whitish plastic tab. I mean, it's just interesting, and it coils down back in there. I know it's tough to see, but it coils back down in there. It's just odd. I mean, they really did a number on this thing, just German engineering, I guess. But you got multiple springs down in there. The sear is right here, pops up and down. It's just a lot, and I would break it all the way down for you, but you actually need a special tool to get it all the way broken down, and it's just a pain in the butt. So not really a hugely end user serviceable setup unless you know what you're doing. So let's go ahead and get this thing back together, and we're going to do some pull tests. I will do at a later date full breakdowns on this and a couple of other things that that people are probably going to ask for. Oops, got that wrong side in there. So I will have those videos in the future. But let's see what she pulls like from the factory. And I can tell you, probably close to 6 pounds. So we're going to do 3 pull tests, which is what I do on everything. Actually, that was a lot less than what I have been getting. So that's just over 4. That's interesting. I do pull kind of low. So normally when I'm shooting, I am riding my finger down on the bottom like that because I want the lowest point of the trigger to get the lightest weight. So that's generally where I pull from, but that was lighter than what I've been getting. So that was a little bit more normal, right around that 5 pound mark. I've been getting a little over, but I do have more rounds through this since the last time I fired it. So that's probably why. So there we go, right between about 4, a little over 4.5. So 4.10 maybe. Pretty good. That's better than what I expected, but I do have quite a few more rounds to this now than the last time I checked it out on the pull gauge. So we'll have more full breakdown videos and some other stuff coming up real soon, especially once I start changing things in here. I will show you how to break it all the way down.
just wanted to get over the overall stuff here today and show it to you. One last look at that gray, you know I had to do it. H&K VP9.
You know, like I said, I really wanted to love this thing out of the box. It felt so good at the store, and it was one of those things where I've said a couple of other videos where things feel really good up front. I kind of got to the range with it, and I was kind of like, I was kind of like underwhelmed. You know, I wasn't getting into it. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, and maybe a little bit of it had to do with the powder release. But I think I might have just overhyped it in my head because I had, you know, the fun I've had with MP5s over the years and some of the other H&K stuff I play with. And I just really thought, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be awesome. This is gonna be, you know, more than I expected or whatever. And then I got out there and I just was like, meh. You know, it was like somewhat of like, oh, I'm firing another Glock. That's kind of almost what I thought. But then it opened up. Once I got a couple more range strips, got several hundred more rounds through it, worked that gun a little harder, did some drills with that gun, which is what I'm trying to do in all my videos now, is kind of shoot more realistically rather than just standing out there and just, you know, plinking at a target. I want to do more drills, I want to do things like that because it keeps me in practice. So the VP9 really did, it opened up for me and I really did start to like it more. I want to say I started to like it a little bit more on range trip 3. I've been at the range with it about 5 times now, and I'm definitely digging it more, but I've got plans to just mod the crap out of this thing because I want to mod the crap out of it and make it something personal for myself. Now, I wouldn't recommend that for everybody because these things are not cheap to mess around with. Now, the gray. You know I was going to buy it in gray because it's one of my favorite colors. I actually got this thing. It was like $90 off on a sale, which was pretty cool. Now, I do have my pet peeves with it. The powder release, but I knew that going into it. There is a version that has the mag release up on the pistol grip. I've never actually seen it in person, but I know it exists because I've seen pictures of it on the H&K website. And then I've had a couple of shop owners tell me, yeah, they've seen it in person, but they've never actually had one to sell as compared to the powder release, which is their obviously preferred model to make. Now, my understanding is some of the grittiness and some of the feeling that going on with the H&Ks, they're using the 40 cal spring in all of them now. And I was told that by a guy who does a lot of work with H&K, so check me on that if you know something different. So what he basically said to do was leave the slide locked back for like a week or two, just leave it safe. And that's gonna open that gun up and make it feel a little bit better. And I gotta say, he wasn't lying because I left it in the safe literally for a week, locked back. And the next couple times I shot it, she really started to feel much, much better out there on the range, less gritty. And some of that has to do with just getting some rounds through it, but it was like kind of different than normal. It definitely felt a lot better, definitely opened up quicker. Now, my pet peeves with it, like we saw up close, little plastic things, you know, the cocking extension serrations back there, I could care less. I could do without those. If anything, I don't like them because it seems to get in the way. It feels weird to me, and I've actually kind of slipped off of them, more so than the serrations because they get slippery because they're plastic. Now, the other thing maybe is the slide release. It's enough to work with there, but I really think they could have given just a little bit more meat on that to really get these things dialed in and get them shooting. Now, everything else that's going on with that grip, pretty dang good. The other thing that on the grip though that I don't like, even though it's very, very customizable, and like I said, I typically hate finger grooves, I like these and it just feels so good. But you know, you look at the magwell right there and it is just so depressed in, so close and so tight on that mag as you're inserting them. You really got to be on point there. They didn't really give any flare. They didn't do anything. And they give you those little kind of depressions right there to strip that mag. Well, yeah, I get that, but I'd really rather have more of a mag well, more flare to get the mag in, because I can pretty much get a hold of this without those little holes or indentions there and yank the damn mag out if I really need to, especially when the adrenaline's going. Everything else on it it's pretty decent. I mean, the sights, yeah, they're those like glow in the dark ones. They're not really night sights, but whatever, they came on and I can change them. So it's good. It's a decent setup. I can't lie. I liked it the more I shot it. Would it be my first choice? No, but you know, some people love that H&K brand, and I've always wanted one, and I've only had like one H&K. I was younger, and I got rid of it, and I kind of wish I never had, but I figured, you know what, the striker fired setup, I'm going to get it. Had one of their old hammer fired setups, and I figured, you know, I'm just going to go for this VP9 and see what it's all about, because I've heard just a lot of people loving them. A lot of my friends have them, like, oh, they're so good, and blah, 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 and then you buy one of your own and you kind of, you know, go through it yourself and figure out what you want. There are definitely a lot of positives here to the platform. It's a good setup, feels great in the hand. It's an H&K, it carries some that name, that reliability, that trust, all those things. It's not a High Point or a Sky or something that you're going to be worried about. The thing is going to go bang. My understanding is this can take a very, very pretty good beating and still keep going. H&K Parts, I can't say the website, but there's a website out there that just says H&K Parts. You Google it, you'll figure it out. Has a lot of stuff for this, and a lot of those are going to go into this thing. So it's good. And those of you that are into H&K and you want that, I really don't think you're going to be let down by this. Those of you going into this thinking this is going to be the best thing you've ever fired right out of the box, she needs some working, guys. You got to lube her up and get her ready to go, if that makes any sense to you out there. But you've got to get this thing well fired to make it really kind of open up for you and feel good firing. Now, in the hand, like I said, ergonomically and everything else, feels awesome right out of the box. Probably one of the best feeling setups in the store that I have had. But at the end of the day, you know I'm gonna mod the crap out of this thing. Probably won't do slide cuts or anything, but there's gonna be some stuff going on in there. So if you guys like anything that you saw here in the video, I'll leave those links down below for you. If you guys like what's going on here with the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you really do enjoy the content I'm putting out, hit the like button as well. If you're interested in those links, guys, you've got to check the first one in the description if you want to see any of the parts or available stuff or anything that I've used and tested out myself. Those are the affiliate links, and they don't allow us to put 2A stuff on YouTube anymore. Either way, I hope you guys liked learning about the VP9 and seeing what the Germans did to the internals on this striker-fired setup. Get out there in the range, have some fun, and I will see you guys on the next one.